The crystal glasses barely registered the movement of Lucy Martinez's trembling hand. Sweat beaded on her forehead, reflecting the blinding light of the restaurant chandelier. Her reflection in the polished black mahogany of the table showed not a waitress, but a woman consumed by exhaustion and fear. The weight of the 3 sizes too big uniform felt like lead on her shoulders. Lucy froze mid-pour, the ice water rippling in the glass as her mind struggled to process the words from the adjacent booth. James Chen has no idea what's coming. Once he signs tomorrow, we dump the merger and flip to Quantum Corp for triple the price. He'll be left holding an empty bag. The voice was low, conspiratorial, and entirely dismissive. Richard Harrison, a man whose silver hair and expensive suit screamed generational wealth, sat opposite his CFO, Marcus Webb, whose cold eyes scanned the room, making sure no one, certainly not the staff, was listening. Lucy's breath hitched, the realization crashing over her with brutal force. This wasn't just corporate gossip, it was a blueprint for financial disaster. And the name Harrison struck a deep, familiar terror. She squeezed the silver chain beneath her uniform, feeling the familiar cool pressure of her wedding ring. I'd been a waitress for exactly 3 weeks. Before that, I was a graphic designer with a decent life. But that life ended the moment Harrison Tech laid off her husband, David Martinez, canceling his insurance the very week he received his devastating diagnosis. Now, she poured water for men like this while David lay in a hospital bed they couldn't afford. Lucy's gaze fell to a leather folder on Harrison's table. The Harrison Tech logo, sharp, cold, unforgiving, was embossed in silver. It was the same logo that had adorned the termination papers that destroyed her family. Her hands started shaking violently. The crystal pitcher slipped. Water splashed onto the mahogany, instantly wetting the sleeve of Richard Harrison's custom suit. Harrison looked up, annoyance replacing the conspiratorial glint in his eye. "Careful, sweetheart. That's a $10,000 suit." I am so sorry, sir," Lucy stammered, grabbing a cloth and furiously mopping the spill. Her mind was already racing past the fear, focused on the terrible knowledge she now possessed. She retreated, her spine tight. She knew something, and it was dangerous. A few minutes later, James Chen arrived. Impeccably dressed, eyes glued to his tablet, he exuded the confidence of a man operating at the peak of the global tech game. He strode past Lucy without a glance, entirely absorbed in his digital world. James was 42, Asian American, the self-made success story of Chun Tech. Lucy noted his corporate tunnel vision. He didn't say thank you when she brought his water. He took a call without acknowledging her presence. He wasn't cruel, just profoundly disconnected. Lucy slipped into the restroom, locking the door. She pulled out her phone, her hands smeared with flour from the bread station. Her eyes went straight to the text message. Treatment payment due in 72 hours. $35,000. Please advise. Her bank app confirmed the devastating truth. $847 in her account. The experimental treatment might work, the doctor had said in the flashback that plagued her mind, but insurance won't cover it. Without it, David wouldn't last the month. Lucy splashed cold water on her face, the stinging sensation a crude attempt to drown the fear. Just get through the shift. Tips are good here. Every dollar counts. But the dilemma was suffocating her. She returned to the floor, where the restaurant manager, a tall man whose starched collar seemed to choke the humanity out of him, pulled her aside. "That's James Chen, tech billionaire. VIP treatment. Don't screw this up. We've had 3 complaints about your service this week. You're on thin ice." Lucy nodded numbly. She knew the stakes. Lose this job, and David loses his chance. She approached James's table, menus in hand. He was on the phone, oblivious to her internal torment. She heard him reassure someone. "Harrison's been a straight shooter for 20 years. I trust him completely. This merger is solid." Lucy felt sick. She had 10 minutes before Harrison and his crew arrived. Why would a man worth billions listen to a minimum wage waitress who'd already been warned about her service? Yet, she couldn't allow another good person to be decimated by the same corporate greed that had nearly killed David. The fear was sharp, but the memory of David's weak, honest face was sharper. During her next break, Lucy sat huddled in the dark, cramped storage room, the only space with no cameras, pulling up her phone. Her fingers, shaky moments before, were now guided by a cold, desperate focus. She furiously Googled Harrison Tech merger history, Richard Harrison business tactics, and Harrison Tech layoffs 2023. The search results materialized like confirmation of a terrible prophecy. News headlines scrolled across the screen, narrated by her own voice, trembling with suppressed rage. Harrison Tech completes merger with DataCore, then immediately sells assets to competitor, original partner left with debts. Former Harrison employees sue over sudden insurance cancellations. Pattern of pump and dump merger tactics alleged against Harrison. The sheer audacity of the recurring betrayal tightened her chest. But the next article stopped her heart. She found an old article detailing the mass layoff that included David. Her hands started shaking violently as she read the caption beneath a photo of David and other distraught former employees. David Martinez, former Harrison Tech senior developer, among 200 laid off without notice. They canceled our health insurance the same day, Martinez stated. My wife was pregnant. I was just diagnosed with a rare illness. They knew. They didn't care. The injustice was no longer a theory. It was her life, her pain, laid bare in black and white. A nearby photo showed Richard Harrison at a glittering charity gala, his smile smooth and philanthropic. The caption twisted the knife. Harrison donates $1 million to cancer research while simultaneously laying off employees with cancer. The sheer hypocrisy was the final emotional trigger. Her pain crystallized into determination. A coworker opened the door. Lucy, your break's over. Chen's table needs service. Lucy stood, smoothing her ill-fitting uniform. Her voiceover was firm. David always said I was braver than I knew. Time to prove him right. She returned to the dining room. Harrison and his crew had arrived. Handshakes, clinking glasses, and the polished veneer of corporate civility dominated the scene. James Chen greeted Harrison warmly. Richard, 20 years of competing, and now we're finally on the same side. Richard's smile was flawless. James, my friend, this is the beginning of something historic. Lucy approached the table with the menu, her heart hammering against her ribs. She had to try. Mr. Chen, can I start you with something to drink? James, distracted, reviewing documents, scotch. Neat. Top shelf. Lucy, of course. And sir, I need to tell you something. It's important. James finally looked up, annoyance flashing in his eyes. I'm waiting for someone. Can it wait? Lucy, no, sir. It really can't. Before she could utter another word, the restaurant manager swooped in, his smile pasted on for the VIPs. Mr. Chen, my apologies. Lucy, why don't you let me handle Mr. Chen's table personally? We're good here. Thanks. Lucy was dismissed, steered away by the manager's firm hand on her elbow. The determination in her eyes didn't falter. She knew she had only minutes left. She was assigned to serve water at nearby tables, allowing her to catch fragments of conversation from Harrison's team. Marcus Webb, CFO, Chen's team did due diligence on the AI patents, but not on our other negotiations. Richard, keep him distracted. Dinner, drinks, make it celebratory. The contract signing is just a formality now. Marcus, once it's signed, we give Quantum the signal. They'll announce the counteroffer publicly. Chen will be forced to. Richard, forced to watch his company bleed while we walk away richer. Just like the last 3 deals. Lucy's breaking point was reached. She saw James Chen laughing with Harrison, completely unaware of the knife poised over his back. She saw the heavy merger contracts laid out on the table. She saw James reach for the ceremonial fountain pen. The restaurant manager materialized beside her, his voice a furious whisper. Lucy, stop hovering near the VIP table. You're making them uncomfortable. One more issue, and you're done here. Internal conflict was agonizing. If I speak up, I lose my job. Without this job, I can't help David. But if I stay quiet, I'm as bad as they are. I'm letting it happen. Again, she saw James pick up the pen. She had seconds. Lucy set down her serving tray with a decisive clack. She walked directly to the table, ignoring the manager's angry, hissed threat. Lucy, get back here. Lucy stood at James Chen's shoulder, blocking the final movement of the pen. Her voice, though quiet, was firm enough to cut through the hushed elegance of the restaurant. Lucy, Mr. Chen, don't sign that contract. The entire table froze. Richard Harrison and Marcus Webb snapped their heads up, annoyance giving way to cold hostility. James Chen turned, confusion replacing the confidence in his eyes. James, excuse me. Lucy, Harrison Tech is going to betray you. The moment you sign, they're flipping the merger to Quantum Corporation. They've done it before. 3 times. You can look it up. Silence draped over the table like a shroud. Richard's smooth facade dissolved, hardening into cold steel. Marcus Webb started to stand, his hand slipping toward his pocket. Richard, a cold smile. James, I apologize for this interruption. Perhaps we should call security. James, to Lucy, skeptical but intrigued. Who are you? How would you know anything about? Lucy, talking fast, her voice tight with adrenaline. My name is Lucy Martinez. My husband worked for Harrison Tech. They laid him off the day he was diagnosed with cancer. Canceled his insurance immediately. He almost died because of them. She looked directly at Richard. You did that. And you've been doing the same thing to other companies. I heard them talking. At that table. They're using you. Once you sign, you're done. The restaurant manager descended upon her, grabbing Lucy's arm with painful force. That's it. You're fired. Security. James, holding up a hand. Authoritative, wait. To Lucy. You're saying you overheard a conversation? When? Lucy, an hour ago. That table over there. I was serving water. They thought I wasn't listening. People never think the waitress is listening. Richard, smooth defense. James, this is absurd. This woman is clearly disturbed. Probably looking for a lawsuit payout or... Lucy, interrupting, desperate. Google Harrison Tech Data Core Merger 2021. Look up Harrison Tech Axiom Deal 2019. Look at the pattern. He does this. He finds companies right before they break through, pretends to merge, then sells to their competitors once he has access to their technology. Your AI patents. That's what he really wants. Not a partnership. James looked at Richard, then back at Lucy. She was trembling uncontrollably, on the verge of tears, but her eyes were fierce, unwavering. James, to Richard, demanding. Richard, this is ridiculous, right? Richard, laughing, but a forced edge. Of course it is. James, we've known each other for 2 decades. You're going to believe a waitress over me. The choice hung in the air, weighted by billions of dollars and one woman's fragile life. James looked at Lucy. He saw the sheer desperation, the honesty that transcended the fear. James, slowly, what was your husband's name? The one who worked for Harrison. Lucy, David Martinez. Senior developer. Let go March 2023 with 200 others. James pulled out his phone. His face changed as he read. James, to Richard, voice cold. There's a class action lawsuit. Martinez versus Harrison Tech Industries. Multiple plaintiffs claiming wrongful termination and insurance fraud. Richard's flawless smile finally faltered. James continued reading from his phone, his voice hardening with every line. James, March 2023, Harrison Tech laid off 200 employees. Class action lawsuit pending. December 2021, Harrison Tech merged with DataCore, then sold key assets to their competitor weeks later. DataCore filed for bankruptcy 6 months after the deal. August 2019. He looks up at Richard. You've been doing this for years. Richard, those are oversimplifications. Business is complex, James. You know that. James, no. We're done discussing anything. To Lucy, you said you heard them talking. What exactly did you hear? Lucy, still shaking but standing taller. They said once you signed, they'd signal Quantum Corporation. That Quantum would announce a counteroffer publicly, and Harrison would accept it. They said you'd be left holding an empty bag. That's a direct quote. They said you did due diligence on the patents, but not on their other negotiations. James immediately called his assistant. His face darkened as he listened. James, kill the deal. Immediately. Send legal to lock down our technology. Yes, now. He hung up, turning on Harrison. James, Quantum's been in negotiations with you for 6 weeks. My assistant just found the SEC filings. You're selling them the exact AI technology one was about to give you access to through this merger. Richard, you can't prove intent. And frankly, James, if you were foolish enough to trust me without proper due diligence, that's on you. James, get out. And if you or anyone from your company comes near mine again, I'll bury you in litigation so deep your grandchildren will still be paying lawyers. Richard paused beside Lucy on his way out, his eyes filled with pure malice. You just cost yourself any chance at a decent job in this city. I'll make sure of it. Lucy, quietly, but with new strength, you already did that. When you destroyed my husband's life. This is just returning the favor. Richard and his CFO left. The restaurant was silent. James turned to Lucy, who was now fully aware she was unemployed. James, thank you. You just saved my company. Lucy, emotionally overwhelmed. I just lost my job. I can't. The adrenaline crash hit. She started to sob, sitting down hard in the nearest chair, the risk and the fear overwhelming the victory. James, sitting across from her. Tell me about your husband. Lucy wiped her eyes and recounted everything. David's diagnosis, the layoff, the insurance cancellation, the experimental treatment they couldn't afford, the $847 in their account against the terrifying $35,000 deadline. James listened, his initial corporate veneer completely stripped away. For the first time, he heard a life, not a business pitch. James, why did you help me? You had every reason to let me fail. I'm just another rich tech guy to you. Lucy, because David wouldn't want me to become bitter. He always said that responding to cruelty with more cruelty just makes the world smaller. And watching what Harrison did to us nearly killed me. I couldn't watch it happen to someone else, even a stranger. James was quiet for a long moment. He pulled out his phone. James, Sarah, I need you to connect me with the billing department at Mount Sinai Hospital. Patient named David Martinez. He looked at Lucy, who nodded, stunned. Yes. I'm covering his treatment. All of it. Immediately. And I want to speak to his doctors about the experimental protocol. Lucy, in shock, tears streaming. Mr. Chen, I can't accept. James, you saved my company. You saved jobs, hundreds of them. You did that at great personal cost. I've spent 20 years building wealth. But somewhere along the way, I forgot why that matters. You reminded me. Consider this the beginning of repayment. The restaurant manager approached awkwardly. Mr. Chen, I apologize for the disturbance. I assure you. James, you fired her. Manager, well, yes, but given the circumstances. James, good. Because she's working for me now. To Lucy, that is, if you want to. Executive assistant position, Chen Tech starting salary $120,000. Full benefits including family medical coverage with no exclusions. Lucy could only nod, tears of shock and gratitude pouring down her face. 6 months later, a text on screen confirmed David's recovery. He sat in his hospital room, alive and healthy, reading a newspaper article with Lucy. Sometimes courage whispers, and sometimes someone powerful enough finally listens. Lucy's warning saved more than a merger. It saved hundreds of jobs, funded life-changing research, and reminded one powerful man that wealth means nothing without humanity. If this story moved you, hit subscribe to see more tales of ordinary courage creating extraordinary change. Comment below. Have you ever spoken up when it cost you everything? Like this video and share it with someone who needs to remember that kindness, even when it's risky, can change the world.